So I'd like to start first by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this wonderful land and pay my respects to the elders, both past, present, and emerging. I'm very excited about this webinar today. Our topic is Microsoft Copilot, getting ready for workplace AI. I'm Chloe Dervin, and I'm joined by Alan Hinton today. So welcome, Alan, and welcome to all of you. It's great to see our clients and our partners, and those of you we haven't met yet before. So welcome. So I'd love to kick off by first telling you a bit about WebVine, who we are. We're a digital transformation consultancy based in Sydney, and we love helping organisations to energise and transform their teams by using the incredible suite of technology from the Microsoft platform. I also wanted to tell you about Ingeo, which is our comprehensive intranet accelerator, which is built on SharePoint. It includes our AI bot, and it is poised to take advantage of all the wonderful AI that's coming out of the Microsoft stack of technology. So we have a lot to get through. This agenda looks like it's only five points, but it's packed with content. We've really been working hard to deliver some great content for today with this webinar. And our hope is that it's going to provide you with a lot of information that will empower you and your organizations in your journey with AI, particularly with the Microsoft AI offerings. So we'll be looking at driving productivity, Copilot, what we know so far, the risks associated, and how to prepare for Copilot. And then we will have some time for questions at the end. So please do jot your questions down as you go along, and we'll try to carve out some time at the end to respond to the questions. It is jam-packed, so don't be surprised if Alan and I are talking quite quickly. But we love kicking off all of our webinars with a poll. We just want to gauge where you're at, how your organisation is currently using AI. So we've got a couple of questions here. So please do start compiling your questions in the poll. So the first is, are you using it for content and or idea generation? Maybe you've got a chatbot for employees or for customer service. And what about data entry? What are you using there? Are you using it to help with data entry or management or synthesis of data? Or are you currently using it for automation and optimization? Or maybe there's some other way of using it. And maybe there's some who are not using it yet and are looking at the wait and see approach. So I can see that you've all contributing. Thank you. There's still a bit of movement in that poll.
Yeah. It's a two-horse race by the look of it.
It is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, the most popular responses are number one. So for content generation and content and or idea generation. So that reeks of ChatGPT to me. And also the second is operations and process automation and optimization. That's fantastic. Okay, and so they're the two. Sorry, content and idea generation is just a tiny scrap ahead of and wins the race. Thank you for that. It's a reek of ChatGPT though, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's jump into this webinar now. And look, we do love giving you a few stats. So this chart really shows the current potential for generative AI and how it can augment our tasks or automate our tasks. And the estimate at the moment is that for 40%, 44% of the task on average for an average worker can be automated or augmented at the moment. So think collecting data, automating repetitive tasks, or the automation side, which is where you have AI working side by side, telling you how to explaining regulations or policies to you, training you on how to use products or services. So already that's a huge amount of tasks that it can help us with. And as we learn to use the technology, and of course, as the technology gets better, this 44% is definitely going to climb. So what are we doing now? Hot off the press, I think in the last couple of days, was a Salesforce in Australia report claiming that 90% of Australian workers are already using artificial intelligence in their daily work, with 68% of those using generative AI tools. So that really surprised me and delighted me that Australians are really getting on this wave. It's very exciting. What's interesting as well is that only 17% of respondents claim to have received any training on how to use this technology safely. So that is also an interesting point, and we'll talk about that a little later on. So I wanted to show you this chart because it really does show that there is a great sentiment and attitude towards using AI. So 68% of knowledge workers state that it will really help in their role. Attitudes include it saves time, it helps me to work faster, it's reducing the boring work, it helps me to do things I never could have done before. And there's only a very small fraction of respondents that said it didn't have an impact or it won't. So, you can see there's great attitude towards uptake of this technology. And, there is a daily list of expanding ways that you can actually use generative AI to help you, whether that is automating tasks or process or through content generation. Yes, there's so much that's happening on the marketing front now where you can create content, automate the posting of blogs and things like that. Or even in training, for example, we can see that you can video a training, then the AI will create the text from that and then compile it into training modules. There's just so many ways of doing it. There's a proliferation of publicly available apps on the market. I don't know if you've seen the website, there's an AI for that. There's tens and thousands of apps that are available to help doing so many of these tasks. So we're at this great time of experimenting and testing out the water of what we do. But with that testing comes concern. So I don't know if some of you have heard about the case with the Samsung employees who leaked internal source code by uploading it to ChatGPT. And it was such a misuse of internal data that there were severe consequences. And since May of this year, Samsung has banned the use of third-party generative AI tools in their workplace. And a number of other Wall Street banks, including JP Morgan and Chase and Citigroup, have also banned and restricted its use. So there is some growing caution among corporates around the world. And obviously, this highlights some of the risks of using these types of external tools. So that's a great segue to talk about Copilot.
Excellent.
Thanks, over to you, Alan.
Great. So this is why you're here, is to hear all about Copilot. So what we wanted to do was sort of set the stage for you, because you may have heard the word Copilot a lot of different places, but you don't fully maybe get what it's all about. So what we thought we'd do is explain to you the base concept of what Copilot is. Now, what Microsoft have done is they actually have many Copilots, and this is really important to understand. It's actually an ecosystem, meaning it's an actual whole platform of Copilot. There is Copilot for SharePoint, there's Copilot for Microsoft's GitHub, there's Dynamics, there's Power BI, there's Windows coming, there's going to be a Copilot for Windows 11. There's a lot of different Copilots in Microsoft's world. So when you hear the word Copilot, don't just assume it's one thing, it's actually many different things. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on the Microsoft 365 Copilot, this little guy right here, okay? There's a lot of other Copilots around, but we're going to focus on that one first, all right? And talk through that. And so that's really important when you keep in mind we're going to focus on that as your first one. So now that we've zoomed in on the Microsoft 365 Copilot, think of this as really around the Office productivity suite of tools. So this is your Outlooks, this is your Teams, this is your OneDrive, your Words, your Excels, your PowerPoint, your OneNote, all of those Office collaborative suite tools. And so this Microsoft Copilot is really designed as a way to sit, like the whole word Copilot, right? It's there to sit beside you and help you do day in and day out tasks. And for those of you, I'm sure all of you spend a lot of time in all of those products. Copilot is really there to assist you. And so it's going to, so through some examples, and we'll get into that, you'll see how the Copilot will sit there and actually help you do things that you would normally have to do from scratch. Now you've got the Copilot to do that. And just to be, Chloe talked about that Samsung example and going to ChatGPT. Where Microsoft and the co-pilots that Microsoft are working on, that's all effectively within your tenant. So all the information is all in your tenant and it's all powered by that environment. No one else outside of your tenant, your Microsoft, are going to get access to this information. And that's where the real power from a security perspective comes in, is it's all in there, it's all ring-fenced and boundaried, so you won't have to worry about leaking things outside like the ChatGPT world. So Microsoft or M365 Copilot is really sort of broken down into three main areas. We have the creativity side, we have the productivity side, and then we have the business chat area. The creativity side is that whole concept of creating drafts for you. I'm sure all of you have gone to something like ChatGPT and said, hey, I really need this thing. Could you please create this email with this, this messaging with 5 paragraphs and done all these things? Well, now within Copilot and sitting inside the Office tools, you'd be able to do something like that. So you could go to Word, create me a draft of this template, use all these things. That's where the creativity side, or the PowerPoint presentation. I need this beautiful slide deck with these images. Could you please just make all that work? That's the creative side of this. And because it sits inside of the Microsoft Productivity Suite, you have it right inside the context. You don't have to go to a web page, type something in over there, copy and paste it. It's all part of that. That's really the creative side. Then the productivity side, that's that example of you've got someone sent you a really long email, and you just really need the core points, or you need to reply to that email. Well, why not ask Copilot to go, could you please read this email, summarize the points back for me, and draft a reply for me to look at, all within inside of your email. Or you've got a lot of notes from a meeting. Okay, I just need those notes summarized in OneNote. Could you please just do that? Those kinds of things will really boost the productivity and really make you more efficient when it comes to things. Or the repetitive tasks that you do in and day out. I want to, someone sent me an email. Okay, I really need a meeting. Could you book a meeting, summarize this email into key agenda points? Please make that happen. That's really where the productivity side of Copilot really comes in. And then you've got the business chat. And this is where Teams and other things will really weave in, because chat and Teams go hand in hand. Well, having Copilot sit in your Microsoft Teams environment and really react to different things. So that's the other side of this. So really Copilot in M365 is broken down into those things. Now, at this point, you may be thinking, okay, what does this actually look like? Because we're right now in a very closed environment, Microsoft have a closed preview, and they've only allowed certain organizations to actually get a sneak peek into what it does. All we have is some small examples, but these will give you an example of what I've been referring to. So in this example here, I need to draft a proposal, and I've got some notes in OneNote, and I've got a product roadmap document that I want to include in this proposal. So please, Copilot, could you please create this for me and put this into a Word document? So this is an example where it's using different tools that are in the productivity suite to really craft the actual thing. This kind of thing could have taken me hours, but with Copilot, it will take me minutes, and then I'll just spend more of my time just tweaking it and adjusting it, like you've probably done in ChatGPT before. So this is an example. Another example, and this is starting to use more of the modern technology, where Copilot is weaving into something called Loop. And I don't know if you know what Loop is, but it's another of those Microsoft tools. But this can create a SWOT analysis based on these little information, these little notes that I provided it. So again, this is more of where Copilot will sit across the entire productivity suite and be woven into those day-to-day tasks. And this is just another example. Another one, and I'm really looking forward to this one, is the concept of having Copilot write me replies to my emails. So I get an email, oh, could you just draft a reply for me? And Copilot does it, I review it, and I'm like, yep, that's good, and off it goes. So instead of that email taking me 5 to 10 minutes, it takes 5 to 10 seconds. Potentially. So this is really going to, for those office workers that spend their time behind a screen, this is really going to improve and speed up their ability to do work. Now, you may be asking yourself right now, okay, Microsoft, they like to charge for things. This is actually going to be very expensive. At least that's what we think it is. So right now, because this is in closed preview, Microsoft have only announced what this is going to cost in the US. And it's actually going to be $30 USD per user per month. Now, they haven't talked about the AUD pricing or anything else. All they've done is talked about the American pricing. And so this is an indication. But what's also a little alarming is that you've got to be on an E3 or an E5 or a business standard or a business premium. A number of the other ones, like an F1 or an educational license, haven't been included yet in this. So we don't even know if you're going to be able to incorporate those licensings. So right now they've just said this. So there's a lot of unknowns, and over the coming months, this will become clear. But right now, this is what we're talking about. And if you think about what your licenses are today, this is now double, if not a bit more than what you're paying now for some of your licensing. So it's a big investment, but we'll talk about more of this as we go. Over to Chloe on risks.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. It is a big investment, isn't it? So, and along with that, even when when you're going to invest in Copilot, you're going to, with an effort to minimize risks of data leak and keeping everything on your tenant, there are still some stumbling blocks that we wanted to highlight. So if you think about it, when people are not researching their own sources of information, when information is served up in the flow of work and AI is going to deliver information, it's not always obvious how trustworthy the source is. So there is going to be issues related to that, and some of these include incorrect permissioning. So if you're trying to find information, maybe you're trying to find the performance review. Which performance review is it going to bring you up? There could be a risk of privacy violation. So this is quite a real concern that people have been talking about. Also, if you think about it, there could be inconsistent information. There might still be multiple sources of truth or multiple sources of the rate card or the pricing card. So which one is going to be the one that's important? And certainly it's going to amplify any error. So incorrect information could spread dramatically. So there are a couple of the risks. Also, we're looking at, if we start to rely on this technology, there is a question as to whether over-reliance can lead to skill atrophy among our employees. Are we going to forget how we do these things? So that's a question that's being raised. And of course, there's the financial risk. Once we lock into AI and it dramatically improves the way we work, is this going to expose us if there are price increases? We're going to be locked into this ongoing arrangement. And then the final one, of course, would be poor adoption. You make an effort to spend for this technology, but what happens if the take-up isn't as you'd hoped and you're not taking advantage of the technology? So some of the around adoption and some of the reasons why workers may not be ready to adopt this technology would be, again, security and privacy concerns. Perhaps it is more of a pushback from executives. Maybe that's the lack of confidence around it. or from users, whether it is I don't understand how to use it or deploy it effectively, the barrier to really grasping how to actually engage with it. So, yep, there are a couple of hoops that we definitely still need to, or hurdles that we still need to jump over to make things work. But I'll hand back over to you, Alan. So how do we actually prepare for Copilot? What have we found that is going to really help us?
Thanks, Chloe. And just a reminder, everyone, if you have any questions on the presentation, please pop them in the Q&A, because I love answering questions. And if you have any questions, please pop them in there, and we'll make sure we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So steps to preparing for Copilot. We've talked about adoption. We've talked about all those things, and adoption is really a critical element for this. Number one, you've definitely got to define the requirements, like which business processes and which groups are going to benefit the most from these. So people that are never touching a computer, or maybe popping in once a week to check a computer, that may not be their perfect example for a Copilot. But someone that's, an office warrior that's working behind a desk all the time and drafting emails and PowerPoint, hey, that's a great example. And what are you going to use it for? So those requirements are really important. And we'll talk a little bit more about these. Then we've got the technical preparation for Copilot, and we'll go through each one of these. AI policies, we've all heard of ethical AI, and Microsoft has done a lot of work in this space. So what does those policies look like from a corporate perspective? Governance, really important with everything we do. How does the governance wrap up to this? And then education and change management. Those are very important elements. And we'll go into each one of those, because this is really important when you're thinking of an AI Copilot project, what you're going to do. So first up, defining AI requirements, goals, outcomes, what's in it for me, helping people understand how they're going to benefit from AI and what they're going to use it for and what business problems they're going to solve. And most importantly, how much more productive are they going to be because of these processes that are going to be improved by Copilot. You've also got to think about the investment required for this. If you just turned on Copilot for your entire organization, that's going to be a big cost. Do you sort of factor that into your planning and effort estimating and align it with your costs for the financial year? You've also got to think about how does this integrate with your other technology and the pain points, really critical, and what training and upskilling is needed. All of these elements go into a good AI Copilot project, and having answers for a lot of these things will definitely help you on when it comes to all the other elements of a particular project like this. Technical preparation, I talked about earlier, the licensing. Who's going to get licensed for it? Do they have the appropriate licenses? Is there going to be costs for that? Other areas, I've talked about, pulling in the Word document from over here and the OneNote from over there. Well, if those files are sitting on network drives, you're not going to be able to leverage that. So how valuable is a Copilot project going to be for you if all of your data or most of your data is still on-prem? All right. Now, and there are also certain limitations around Microsoft's Copilot. Right now, it's only available for one channel, which is called the current channel. There's other channels like fortnightly and quarterly and stuff like that. Right now, it's just for those. So all these little gotchas can have an impact when you're thinking about the project. So this is definitely something that IT and the team need to think about, especially also from your network. Microsoft has certain network connectivity principles that you've got to consider. There's a lot of data involved in this, as you can imagine. So making sure that it's aligned with that, so your network and the how you interact with Microsoft isn't impacted. We've talked about security issues and single source of truth when we were going through the risks. There's nothing more challenging than finding something or being given something that's either you shouldn't be seen or that it's the wrong version of it. So your permissions to your existing content, how secure is it? Are the people that you are going to open up the Copilot to, do they have the right levels of permissions? Do they have the right visibility into all of these things? So using things like syntax and purview and some of the new things like the data access governance, can really help you understand if your environment is ready for a Copilot project. Because there has been instances where, you know, they went into SharePoint and they could see things that they weren't supposed to. So you've got to be very careful about ensuring that your existing structure is in place and secured so that people can see and have access to the right information. So that's just a few examples, but there are more. There's some things around SharePoint Advanced Management under Microsoft Syntax that can give you further insights, and external, internal collaboration around seeing which documents have been shared with which people. And there are many more other examples of things that Microsoft are putting in now that you can either pay to have or that you can use to ensure that your platform is secure. Because Microsoft has now realized, taken them a few years, but they have realized that, you know, there's too much sharing necessarily going on, that people are being shared necessarily with not the right things. So they've actually put in a lot of new technology that can help you identify those kinds of items. Getting your documents ready, again, it's all about that. So cleaning them, reducing, you know, eliminating those multiple sources of truth that we talked about, the risks. Privacy and security, making sure those documents, labeling them, using some of the newer technology to label and classify documents. Doing spring cleaning and cleaning up those documents can eliminate those multiple sources of truth or the inaccuracy. These are just some things that you can think about. Of course, the licenses are important with Copilot. You've got to think about who you license it to. Do you consider it as a pilot thing? Again, if you've got those frontline workers that aren't touching computers too often, whether you consider them, or maybe when they are touching those computers, can you make them faster and better at what they're trying to do? You know, there are business cases to even improve those, few minutes or hours that maybe some of the frontline workers spend on those computers. So all of this goes into that pot when considering who's going to access, why they're going to access it, and then of course the financial implications of giving them licenses and things, because you really want to ensure that the people that are using it are getting the most out of it, and it's making their lives easier and better. Another area, governance, critical to this, establishing your governance framework and getting those right people at the table to really embrace the AI and the Copilot project. IT, legal, HR, business leaders, those are all good people that should be at the seat of the table when you're talking about how AI and Copilot can improve their employees' day-to-day work. And what does this look like, and who's going to do it? But last, but certainly not least, is the education and change management. We talked about adoption. We had a bunch of slides there. Really important that you think about this and you're very methodical and you demonstrate this, because people could be worried about losing their jobs. They could be worried about, there's a lot of things that go into this. So the more they embrace it, the more they understand the WIFM rule, what's in it for me, will be really important in this area. So I can't stress this part enough, and being very methodical around this. All right, excellent. I know I was very lightning quick, but I want to just hand it back to Chloe.
Thanks, Alan. Look, we've covered a lot through this webinar, and we've got a couple of minutes left for questions. So please put your questions in the Q&A and we'll hope to answer them. So, we've talked a lot today about driving productivity, the benefits that are really there for us to take advantage of, and how that's made even more attractive through keeping it in your secure environment through the Copilot suite of offerings. We've had a little touch on the risks, and also Alan's talked through how we can prepare for Copilot. So really hope that that's given you some great food for thought. We have an offer that we'd love to present to you, which is that we're happy to help you with this cleaning up, with this spring cleaning, starting to get your documents in order. So we have a documents workshop offer where we'll go through identifying document sources with you, conducting health checks, and supporting you with best practices, and conducting a permissions audit. So a full day of work to set you up for this journey ahead. So please reach out if you'd like to engage us with that. So we have a couple of questions coming through. So Alan, can
Yep.
you have a
I've
look
got
at
them here. Yep.
You've got them?
I do. So the first question, I presume we need Azure OpenAI subscription for Copilot, and do we have to go with GPT-4, as in GPT-3 model won't work with Copilot? Look, a lot of this is still, at the moment, it's definitely you need the M365 Copilot license. I believe that's the only license. I don't believe you need an Azure OpenAI, but again, it's very early with all of this. So I think some of those things will come out as we go on this journey. I haven't heard that you need that Azure OpenAI, but definitely the M365 Copilot license would be a thing. So thank you very much for that question. When connecting with Teams, I presume as a chatbot, do we need paid Power Virtual Agent license, or can we go with the free? Look, I believe that it's not going to be part of that. I think it's going to be the Copilot's going to sit as long as you've got that Copilot license, that it will all be an app in Teams and you'll be able to add it in. But that's still, again, the team stuff hasn't really come out too much yet. So I don't think you'll need the paid Power Virtual Agent. That's, again, another element, but that's a really good question. Next up, when you say that files must be in the cloud and not on servers, can they be on a server in Azure Cloud or only in SharePoint? Great question. Thank you very much on that. I believe, from what I've heard and what I've read, they actually have to be in SharePoint. So just because you put them in your Azure Cloud doesn't actually mean that they will be part of that. I'm sure Microsoft will get there, but right now they are very much focusing on the files that are in your OneDrives, your SharePoint Online, your Teams, those areas as their first iteration. Next would probably be that, and they'll probably have connectors, but right now it's not those. Question on the workshop. What is the output from the documents workshop? Is it a clear plan or framework to work on? Think of it more as a working session that really helps you wrap your arms around your documents, because with a lot of organizations that we work with, they don't fully have a grasp of where those documents are, how they're secured, or who should have access to them, or the naming conventions, or whether they are more intranet documents or whether they're more working documents. So what we do is we help you discover what all of that looks like to then go forward with that, because the first step is knowing what you have, and then you go for it. So that wouldn't be part of the workshop necessarily. We could help with that as a separate thing. It's more just getting to know where your documents are and who's securing them and who needs access and that kind of thing. But that's a great question. Thank you. Next, will Copilot have some form of note-taking AI that sits within Teams? Great question. Not initially, because what Microsoft have actually done is they've built this note-taking capability into the Microsoft Teams Premium. So I think they're going to sell you the Microsoft Teams Premium service for note-taking and stuff. So they've already got an offering around this that does a lot of things. I think so that's already today in the Teams Premium, and I think they will continue that. I don't think they will take that feature away from that selling option, but it's possible. We don't know yet. The Teams Premium and Copilot, Microsoft, we don't know quite where they're going to sit yet. And I think Microsoft don't even necessarily know yet. I think that's still to be determined. But that's another great question. Excellent.
Yeah, wonderful questions.
Yeah.
And there are still as Alan has articulated, there's still so many unknowns. More information is being revealed bit by bit. It's definitely getting everyone very excited, and clearer plans are going to be articulated and announced down the track. So, it's a case of staying tuned, but, there's so much we can do in terms of preparation before then, so that we can take advantage when everything becomes available. So thank you everyone for joining us with this webinar today. Thank you so much, Alan. I hope that you've really gained some insights. Maybe there's a few gold nuggets there for you to take home and to start thinking about and implementing. And have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.